Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another video on Salesforce code. So guys, in today's video we'll be creating a custom lightning web component, and in that lightning web component we'll be having a password input there, and on that password input we'll be having some validation and some kind of security as well. You must have seen it on other websites, like whenever you need to enter a password, it might ask you to enter a lowercase character, an uppercase character, and maybe a number or some special character as well. But guys, in this validation we'll be building up some kind of a UI as well, and in that UI we'll be having those validation, and let's say if a user has entered a lowercase character, so there will be a tick mark beside that validation. If user has entered an uppercase character as well, so there will be a tick mark for the uppercase as well. Okay, so that's how we'll be managing those validation on the UI itself on the client side. Okay, so let's start today's video guys. I'm Kapil, host, and you're watching Salesforce Code. Alright guys, let's start today's video. So let me open VS Code first. So this is my VS Code guys, and here I'm already having a component. This is an empty component right now, and we'll be building up the functionality from the scratch. So while I was looking for this functionality, so I found a very cool example of this functionality on W3 School's website. So I just took that example and modified it as per my requirement. Okay, I will also share the original example link in the description of this video, and as well as we will be having a blog also, so I'll share the details on the blog as well. Okay, so here guys, the first thing we need is a custom CSS, because we'll be building a UI for that validation. So usually you guys are having validations like on the click of a button on a text change, and the validation is usually text, red color text, which you can display underneath the input. But in this case we'll be having a UI as well, so you must have seen this kind of UI on the login screen. So let's create some valid CSS first. Okay, so first we'll create a valid CSS, so we'll name it valid, and in this valid CSS we'll be just having color as green. Okay, then we have to create a before CSS also, like when it's not valid. So for that we will do valid before. Okay, and in this valid before we will set the position of the check marks or of the icon. Okay, so we will have position as relative, and let's move it little bit from the text, so you can give like margin left and minus, and the content of that. So in content guys, I'll be having an icon, a right icon. So I have already copied that icon, so let me just paste it here directly. So in content we'll be having this icon. Okay, now the same way we will be creating error or invalid CSS. Okay, so let's name it invalid first. So in invalid CSS we'll be having color as red, and the same way we'll be having the invalid before as well. So in invalid before we will be having the same position and a different icon here. So let me just quickly copy that icon. Here it is. So this will be the CSS guys for this. Okay, now let's move to the HTML part. In HTML part, definitely, I mean, it is going to be a password validation example, so definitely we'll be having a username and password field, of course. So let's create the template first. Okay, so first I will add a lightning card. Okay, and in that lightning card I'll be having title, password validation. Yeah, that should be fine. Also, let's give some margin. So I'm giving medium margin here. Okay, now underneath that we'll have lightning input type this will be the username box. Let's put the label of username. Okay, so this will be specifically for that username purpose. And now the next will be Lightning input. The type will be password this time, and apart from that we'll have a label, enter your password. Okay, and let's put a name here. Okay, and now or maybe I'll add that function later, because we have to show the UI and hide the UI when user click on this input. So we can also add that functionality, and we have to add a pattern here. The pattern should be like the password should contain, and in this example I'm creating a pattern for a password should contain lowercase, uppercase and a number as well, and it should be at least 8 characters. So for that I have already found validation on W3 School, so I'm just putting it directly here. Okay, and we'll be having on change event here, so let's name it handle change. Okay, so this will be the functionality for the password field, and also don't forget to make it required. Okay, let's require the password as well. Okay, now we need a button. So for button we'll simply take lightning button, and label could be save. And we have I'm not creating on click here because I won't be doing anything on click. So I think that should be enough. Okay, let's save it. Okay, now let's move to the JavaScript part. So in JavaScript, for now we'll be just having handle change. Okay, because that is the only function we have created there. Let's push it to the org now. Okay, now let's go to the application, and I have already created a tab for it. So here it is, the password. So I'll just drag my component over here now. Here is my component, password validation. You can see the UI here. Let's hit save, back. So this is the UI of that username and password thing, but we are not having any UI for the validations yet. So now guys, we'll be creating a UI for the validation. So let's create that inside this div. Okay, now we'll add the class here. So in this div we may add maybe SLDX box, and we can also have a different theme of SLDS. You can guys find these themes on the Lightning design system itself. So I'm having that alert texture field. Okay, so this is our main div. Now underneath that, let's have a heading tag and password must contain the following. Okay, Now I'm using the paragraph tag to display the text. So let's create ID. So first we will check the lowercase. So let's name it letter, and in class we'll be having invalid for now, and let's say a lowercase letter, and the same we will be having for capital letter, number, and length as well. Okay, so let's change the ID. Let's name it capital, number, and length. So we'll have uppercase. Here we'll have number. Okay, number, character, and here we have minimum 8 characters. Alright, so guys, this is going to be the UI for those validations. So let's put it, let's push it to the org and see the output. Okay, let's go to the org, refresh. Okay, so this will be the output of that, guys. So for now, this will be the default output. Now we have to create the functionality, like when user will enter the password. So let's say if I have entered a lowercase, so we should have a tick here, and the text color should be green in that case. Okay, and also we need space between this, and also like this should only be visible when user will enter the password, not in the case of the username. Okay, so for that what we can do is, first thing we need the BR here. Okay, now we need to make it visible on the click of that input. So for that we can take a parameter here. Let's say show validation. Okay, and here we can have template if true, and here we'll be having that show validation. All right, and let's put it here. Okay, now we need to make it visible when user click on the input. So for that we'll be using onfocus event. So onfocus, and also when user will leave this input, maybe if user click on anywhere else on the screen, so the validation box should disappear. So for that we'll be using onblur event. Okay, so guys, we have created the event. Now we'll be putting those events in the JavaScript. So let's go to JavaScript and create functions. First we are creating handle focus, and on handle focus we will just do this dot show validation true. Okay, and here we'll create another function which will be handle blur, and on handle blur we'll do this dot show validation is false. Let's check the output now. Okay, I need to save it. And HTML is saved now. So let's go to the browser. So you see now the validation box is not visible by default. So when user will click on password, in that case only the box will appear here. Okay, and let's say if I click anywhere else, so the box will be disappear. So this is on focus and on blur basically. Okay, now let's do one thing. We have to check those. We have to check the regex. We have to use match for that in the JavaScript itself. So for that we'll be doing it on the handle change function. So on handle change, let's save the password first, because we have to check like whether it is containing a lowercase and uppercase and number, and it should be at least 8 character long. Okay, so first we'll do event dot target dot value. Now we are having the password value in this password value parameter. All right, now we will check the regex, guys. Okay, so first let's check the lowercase. So let's create a regex here. So first we will check the lowercase, guys. Okay, so we'll use lowercase regex here, which is slash and G. So this regex is used for check the lowercase character. Now we will check if password value dot match this regex and lowercase letters. Now if it match the regex, then we have to change the CSS class. We have to use the invalid before, and we have to toggle the invalid before and valid and valid before and valid. So for that, as we are checking the lowercase letter first, so we'll do this dot template query selector, and here we'll be having the ID, the data ID for the lowercase, which was letter. Okay, and now we'll do dot class list dot remove. So we'll remove invalid. Okay, and after removing the invalid, we have to add the valid class. So we'll do same thing here as well. Okay, we'll make it valid dot add. Okay, so this will be the functionality if the regex match with the current regex, but if it does not match with the current regex, so for that we'll be having else block. And else block also, let's copy the same here as well. Okay, this is for valid and invalid. So in letter we will remove valid and we will add invalid. So guys, whatever functionality you are having on the if block for the validation success, the opposite functionality will be having on else block. Let's save it, push it to the org and test the functionality quickly. Okay, so we are having the box visible. Now let's say if I type a lowercase character here, so the CSS of this invalid lowercase should change to valid lowercase. Okay, so let's say if I type a lowercase, you see the CSS, guys. Now the color is green, and for the tick sign we are having the right sign instead of the cross sign. And let's say if I remove it, then we are having same again. And for example, if I will enter an uppercase character right now, so it is not going to change the CSS. Now let me try to type another lowercase, and yep, so it is working as expected. So now guys, using the same way, we'll be having the CSS for others also, like for the uppercase and for the number and for the 8 character length as well. Okay, so guys, just to save the time, I have already created that functionality and I'm already having that code with me here as well. So let me just copy that quickly and paste it here. Otherwise, if we build the functionality from scratch, so it could take around 30 minutes or maybe longer. Okay, so let's replace the functionality here. Okay, so guys, now here, okay, we were here. So here we are having the same functionality for the capital letter as well. For the capital letters as well, I have used the uppercase regex here, and here let me just remove this console. I was using it for the testing purpose. And here also we are just doing the same thing to add the valid class in the case of success and remove the invalid, and in the case of error we are just adding the invalid class and removing the valid one. Okay, so the same functionality you may notice here. Just the smaller changes here is like in the query selector, we are just using the next ID, which was capital. For the numbers, we will be using the next ID and a different regex here. And for the length, we are simply using the character.length function. Okay, and the different data ID here as well. The data ID was length. Okay, so now let me save it and push it to the org. Okay, let's go to the org now. Alright, so we are not having any input, any validation box here. So when you will click here, so you see the validation box. So for now, I'm just typing a lowercase character. So you might notice the change on the lower side one. So you see right there, and now I'm typing an uppercase character. You see right on the uppercase validation as well, and the color has also changed. Now let's say if I will type a number, so the same way the number validation is working, and if the character limit will exceed the 8 characters, so the character limit validation will also change its CSS class. Okay, so guys, that's how you may create validations. You may create different validation as per the requirement. The purpose of this example was just to show you like what kind of UI can be built for this kind of functionality. Okay, so you may use the same functionality or maybe a different functionality for a different purpose, but that's it. I mean, that's how you may use the functionality here. And also guys, I will be having the complete code on my blog also, which is salesforcepol.com. so if you need the complete code, so you may just directly go there and check that out, and feel free to modify it as per requirement. So that's it for today guys, and if you like today's video, a subscribe to the channel will be awesome. I'll see you in the next one guys. Thanks for watching.